Hosea chapter 7. The prophet Hosea, oh, I got to turn this on. The prophet Hosea lived during the time of the divided kingdom. The southern kingdom was normally called what, gang? Judah. That's what the southern kingdom was called. The northern kingdom was normally called Israel and sometimes called Ephraim, which was the biggest of the tribes in the northern area. Sometimes they're also referred to by their capital cities, like sometimes we call the United States, we call it, and Washington did this, and Washington did that, because that's the capital. So sometimes the southern kingdom is called Jerusalem, and the northern kingdom is called Samaria. Very good. So Hosea's job is to speak primarily to the northern kingdom. Now, as we've talked about, Hosea had a very unusual home life. God asked him to do something that he probably isn't going to ask anyone else, but he asked Hosea to do this. He asked him to marry a prostitute. They got married, they started having kids, and just like often happens around here, after you have the kids, the wife goes back to work. She went back to work as a prostitute. And then God asked Hosea to do the most amazing thing. He said, go back and get her. Because your marriage is a picture of my relationship with my people. And so, as we go through the book of Hosea, I will try to do my best to remind you all through this book that even though there will be talk about judgment and God will be reminding them of all the bad things that they're doing, don't you forget that behind all of this is a God who loves his people desperately, and he wants them to come back. So we'll pick it up in chapter 7 this morning, verse 1, and I'm calling this section the oven. Verse 1, then I would have healed Israel. When I would have healed Israel, then the iniquity of Ephraim was uncovered, and the wickedness of Samaria, for they have committed fraud. A thief comes in, a band of robbers takes spoil outside. God says here, I would have healed Israel. And I just want to stop here and remind you, God wants to help. And when you hear people talk about God's judgment and warnings of God's judgment, this is not about an angry God who is just waiting to smash people and to ruin them and to rip them into pieces. And he's laughing in heaven going, wah, dirty sinners, wah. No, this is a God. This is a God who wants to heal his people, who wants to restore them. Have I lost a little bit of sound? Or is that on purpose? I don't know. Was that me? That was you. No. It wasn't somebody. Okay, I'll move on. So remember, this is the book of Hosea. This is God who wants to help his people. I would have healed them, but they were stubborn. Verse 2, they do not consider in their hearts that I remember all their wickedness. Now their own deeds have surrounded them. They are before my face. They have made a king glad with their wickedness, and princes with their lies. They are all adulterers. Like an oven heated by a baker, he ceases stirring the fire after kneading the dough until it is leavened. Now let me just talk for a minute about the oven, because he's going to use this idea of an oven through the next couple verses. Israel's passion for the wrong things is compared to the fire in an oven. That's what we want to keep in mind. Israel's passion for the wrong things is like the fire in the oven. And an ancient baker that's the ovens, ladies, weren't in the kitchen, they were outside. And they would look something like that. And the baker would keep a fire going. And even during the night, while he's got his bread rising, trying to let the bread rise, not in the oven, but letting the bread rise, while that's going on, there would be a fire still going in the oven. But in the morning, when it's time to bake the bread, then he would stir it up, heat up the oven, and then bake the bread. But the oven that God's describing isn't for bread. It's for the burning up of the leaders. You'll see that in a second. That's what this oven is for. Israel's passion for the wrong things is going to cause the leaders to be burnt up. That's the picture he's painting, verse 5. In the day of our king, princes have made him sick, inflamed with wine. He stretched out his hand with scoffers. They prepare their heart like an oven while they lie in wait. Their baker sleeps all night. In the morning it burns like a flaming fire. They are all hot like an oven and have devoured their judges. All their kings have fallen. None among them calls upon me. That's what this oven is doing. It says it's devouring the judges. It's making the kings fall. During the years of Hosea's ministry, 4 out of 5 leaders will be assassinated. It's like being burned up in the oven. Can you imagine that? I mean, this is the anniversary weekend, isn't it? 50 years ago? Do you remember where you were 50 years ago? You have to be really old to remember that. You have to be, pushing 60 to remember. Yeah, but Mary doesn't remember because it was, yeah. Do you remember the assassination of JFK? If you were old enough, you would remember because it was one of those huge moments in history. Well, imagine that JFK was assassinated, following by LBJ assassinated, following by Richard Nixon being assassinated, following by Jimmy Carter being, probably Gerald Ford, right? And then Jimmy Carter. 4 out of 5 leaders will be assassinated. That's the picture. And what's causing the fire? The passion for evil things. Verse 8. Ephraim has mixed himself among the peoples. And Ephraim refers to who? The northern kingdom. That's this oven. Ephraim has mixed himself among the people. It's kind of like cake mixing language, flour and oil, and mixing himself among the peoples. Ephraim is a cake unturned. How many of you like to make pancakes? How many of you, your pancakes come out like this? That's not my pancakes. It's not my wife's pancakes. I got that off of the internet. Just full disclosure, that's not our pancakes. Though I have to admit, there have been a few times where I've made a pancake and you walk off, you get distracted, and you come back, and you flip it and it's burnt, right? Ephraim is a cake unturned. It's burnt up. Verse 9, aliens have devoured his strength, but he does not know it. Yes, gray hairs are here and there on him, yet he does not know. Doesn't realize he's turning so old. It says, aliens have devoured his strength. I got really good news for you. I found some actual footage dating back to this time, and I'll show it to you. Quiet. 50 points for anybody who knows the name of that alien being. What's the name of the creature? See, you're really quite unique. No, the Gorn. Sorry. Okay. It was called the Gorn. I was thinking it was something else too. So, Carolyn, you're amazing. Okay. What we're talking about here, aliens have devoured his strength. The idea is the aliens are the non-Israelis. The treaties with those who are not Israelis, the treaties with nations like Assyria and Egypt, treaties that the nation would make to try to help them, but instead of helping them, it would hurt them. So that's the picture here. Aliens have devoured his strength, verse 10, and the pride of Israel testifies to his face, but they do not return to the Lord their God, nor seek him for all this. Verse 11. Ephraim also is like a silly dove, without sense. They call to Egypt. They go to Assyria. Wherever they go, I will spread my net on them. I will bring them down like birds of the air. I will chastise them according to what their congregation has heard. Now, Ephraim, which refers to who? The northern kingdom, is compared to a silly dove. The idea is that, see, doves, pigeons, they are not the brightest of birds. I have proof again for this.
Atta bird, Pesto, always the optimist.
So yesterday must have been a weird afternoon.
Said you're an optimist.
An optimist? What are you saying, that I'm some kind of doctor here to test your vision for you? That I'm an eyeball inspector? That I make a spectacle of myself? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you look on the bright side, an optimist.
I am an optimist.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's it. Come here,
Oh, okay. Sorry. That's the last of the stupid videos. I just want to let you know. Israel wasn't the smartest when it came to alliances with various nations like Egypt and Assyria. They weren't the brightest with their alliances. They're looking for help in the wrong places. Israel was crying out for help in everywhere except from God. And I was thinking about us. I was thinking about me, actually. And how many times I turned to the wrong things for help. Some of us turn to money for the answer, we think. Some of us are convinced that more money will fix the problem. Now, you won't admit that in church, so I won't ask for a show of hands. Because you know I've already set this up, that's the wrong thing. But some of us are convinced that more money will fix the problem. So you take an extra job, you get another loan, you hit up your friends for money, thinking that money is going to fix your problems. And I'm not saying that money doesn't help, but you're looking at the wrong thing. Some of us will turn to things like alcohol and drugs. And when we think we have it under control, maybe you might get it under control for a week or two, maybe a month. And then some difficulty comes up. And that little knee-jerk reaction comes. And you go looking for help in the wrong thing. Some of us turn to things like pleasure. And so life is bad. And what do? We act out. And whether it's something considered innocent or some type of forbidden sexual pleasure, we're looking for help in the wrong places, friends. We're looking for help in the wrong places. Some of us turn to the refrigerator. I know that one. I know that one. Life is tough, and I go looking for ice cream. And my, oh my, is it hard to keep the weight off. Oh my, has it been hard to keep the weight off. I've had to go back on the diet again because I put 20 pounds back on. Why? Because when things get tough, I go looking for food. Hello? You see the problem? I'm looking for help in the wrong things. Some of us go to the mall. You know, they say when the going gets tough, the tough go shopping. See, you know. You know, and there's that little rush of some new thing that makes you feel better. Pay attention, friend. Pay attention. You think, well, it's just harmless. It's just this little $5 toy. But think about why you're doing this. Think about where you're going with this. Have you ever thought that you could go to the one who actually has the answers to the real problem you're struggling with? God says, look to me and be saved, all you ends of the earth, for I am God and there is no other. There's someone who loves you so much, he gave up his life for you. And Jesus died on a cross not just to get you a ticket into heaven. He died to save you, and not just about eternity, but even for now. He came to give you help for what you're going through now. We want to make sure we're going to the right place for help. Do you understand? It's not that we're going to get it automatically. It's not that we don't have to work at it. Oh my, I got to work at this. And sometimes I don't quite get it. And off I go to the refrigerator, and it's 2 quarts later that I realize, oh, yeah. Pay attention. Why am I doing these things? Verse 13. Woe to them, for they have fled from me. Destruction to them, because they have transgressed against me. Though I redeemed them, yet they have spoken lies against me. Israel was God's nation. They had been redeemed by him, brought out of Egypt, and now they are speaking lies about God. And as I was thinking about that, I couldn't help but think about our own nation. I think about how our own nation was founded by a bunch of God followers. Don't believe what the press tells you about our founding fathers. For the most part, 90% of them were God-fearing Christians who followed the God of the Bible. And they founded this nation on biblical principles. If you've been through the Truth Project, was it Samuel Adams, I think it was the one that said, you know, this experiment that we're trying isn't going to work if we're not clinging to God. And now we're at the point where it's more politically correct to deny the God of the Bible, to separate God from our nation, to make up lies about God. It's just like Israel. And my friends, when I look at what Israel went through and I see where we are, doesn't it kind of make you tremble a little bit about who we are? Verse 14. They did not cry out to me with their heart when they wailed upon their beds. They assembled together for grain and new wine. They rebel against me. The idea of assembling together is that they have their own kind of, quote, quote, church services to call upon the gods of the heavens to have a good crop, but they're rebelling against the true God. Though I disciplined and strengthened their arms, yet they devise evil against me. They return, but not to the Most High. They are like a treacherous bow. Their princes shall fall by the sword for the cursings of their tongue. This shall be their derision in the land of Egypt. Talks about Israel being like a treacherous bow. That's a weapon that you can't trust, that you can't count on. It might look like something that you could use against your enemy, but it's of no help at all. That's what we're like when we are rebelling against God. Chapter 8, verse 1. Set the trumpet to your mouth. He shall come like an eagle against the house of the Lord, because they have transgressed my covenant and rebelled against my law. He's talking about the Assyrian nation is going to come, swoop down on the nation of Israel like an eagle. Verse 2, Israel will cry to me, my God, we know you. We know you. Israel will boast about knowing God, but they don't know him. Words aren't enough. It's one thing to say you know God, but do you really know God? Now that's what Israel's struggling with. It's like, well, I must be a Christian. I'm born in the United States. We're a Christian nation, so that makes me a Christian. I got news for you. That doesn't make you a Christian any more than going to McDonald's makes you a hamburger. Knowing God. Verse 3, Israel has rejected the good. The enemy will pursue him. They set up kings, but not by me. They made princes, but I did not acknowledge them. From their silver and gold, they made idols for themselves that they might be cut off. Now it says they set up kings, but not by me. There is a sense in the Bible that all of those who are in authority are put there by God. That's a biblical principle. We get this from Romans 13:1. Let every soul be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are appointed by God. Now, he's not just talking about good guys, good authorities, good governments. He's talking about all governments. All authority comes from God. And keep in mind, when Paul writes this, the governing authority was the wicked pagan Roman Empire. All authority is from God. But there is also a sense that God actually prefers good rulers over bad rulers. God actually does prefer good rulers. But sometimes God will allow bad rulers into authority as a type of judgment on those people, on that nation. It's a sense of getting what they deserve. So, I'm not here to make a political statement, but if you don't like our government, if you don't like the way things are being run in Sacramento or in Washington, the real issue is not kicking the bum out of office. The real issue is changing the hearts of the people. We need revival. And friends, it doesn't start out there, it starts here. It starts with us. In our text, Israel has set up their own rulers, rebelling against the house of David. God allowed it, but it wasn't his first choice. Verse 5, your calf is rejected, O Samaria. My anger is aroused against them. How long until they attain to innocence? Now this calf, when King Jeroboam first split the northern and the southern kingdoms, he was worried, because he was the king of the north, he was worried that his northern kingdom would eventually go back and join the southern kingdom because everybody was used to going to Jerusalem for the yearly feasts, the yearly festivals. And so he figured he had to do something to keep them from going back to Jerusalem and saying, well, we just really like it here in church. What are we so mad about them for anyway? Let's just all be one big happy family. Well, he didn't want that, so instead he set up his own religion, which involved calves, a golden calf. He put a golden calf in the city of Bethel, another one up in the north in Dan, and he tweaked his own religion, created his own religion. And God says, your calf is rejected, O Samaria. For from Israel, verse 6, is even this. For from Israel is even this, talking about this golden calf. A workman made it, and it is not God. But the calf of Samaria shall be broken to pieces. A workman made it, and is not God. Talk for a minute. There's a principle here. I'm calling it homemade God. Homemade God. Some people have the notion that it really doesn't make any difference which religion you're a part of, because all religions are good. And as long as you believe, that's all that counts. That's what some people kind of hold to. The problem with that is that God is not a thing that we just make up. God is actually, believe it or not, a real person. He's a real person. He's not the invention of somebody's active imagination. He's an actual, real person. And he wants you to know him like he really is, not who you think he is. Now, I want to introduce you this morning to my wife. Okay? There's my wife. Now, I got to tell you, I think she's kind of cute. Don't you? I'm going to give her a kiss. I love my wife. You know, we do all kinds of things together. We go on vacations together. This is a vacation. This is a vacation thing. I can even walk around the room with my wife. See? I walk around the room with my wife. I want to show you something you probably didn't even know before. Watch this. This is absolutely amazing. My wife has a special talent that some of you don't even know about, but I'm going to show you what my wife can do. My wife even has the ability. Watch this. My wife can fly. Is that awesome or what? Don't you wish you could fly? And she's very handy. I can even fold her up and put her in my pocket. Very handy. I can pull her out whenever I want. You know? Now, at some point, as I'm describing this, you hopefully realized that I wasn't actually talking about my real wife who's sitting back there. And I had her permission, so I don't owe her $5. I actually have her permission to talk about this. This is all pretty two-dimensional. This actually isn't my real wife, is it? It's a picture of her, but it's not her. Friends, this is why the Bible tells us that God doesn't want us to make any images of him. Why? Because every image falls short a little bit of the real deal. If you come away thinking, this is my wife, oh, she is so much more than that. We'll never have a good enough image of God. And yet, people make images of God. I want to show you a scene from the movie Castaway. It's towards the end. It's where the main character, played by Tom Hanks, has finally gotten off the island. I don't know if you remember this scene. and he finds that he's lost his best friend, Wilson.
Wilson, where are you? Wilson! 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 I'm coming! Wilson! 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 I'm sorry! I'm sorry, Wilson! Wilson, I'm sorry! I'm sorry! Wilson! I can't! Wilson! Wilson!
Now, pretty touching, huh? Remember that part in the movie? You get a little teary right now? Let me remind you, we're talking about a stupid ball. I get the movie. I understand it. Totally understand it. I feel the sympathy too. The music helps. But we're not, he's crying over a ball. Let's peel away and look at the reality of the situation. Some of you, it's possible that your concept of God is not real. And you're trusting in what you think is a good photograph of God, or some ball that you are following and you think that's God, and it's not. He's a real person. He's way bigger. Way, way bigger. You can't make him up. He's real. Who is he to you?
It's your time of the year, Jesus!
Wow, thanks, guys. But this is a little weird.
Weird? What do you mean? We do this every year.
Yes, but I haven't seen you all year.
Well, now's your time to shine, Jesus. Yeah, you put the Christ in Christmas. Oh, yeah, you're the reason for the season.
Yes, but I don't want to be the reason for just this season. I want to be with you in every season of your life.
Oh, that is so sweet, Jesus. Thank you for being born. You're such a cute little baby. Away
Okay, but I'm not a baby anymore.
No crib for...
And I'm not in a manger. Okay, I'm in a manger. But it's more than that. I want a relationship with you every day.
Well, Jesus, you have Easter to look forward to. Yeah, and technically a day around the flagpole of prayer, right? Ooh, and Thanksgiving, kind of yours too.
Yeah, but I want more than just the holidays, guys. I want an everyday relationship with you.
Jesus, you are in my life every day. I mean, I've got a cross on my wall and a fish on my car. Yeah, I mean, Jesus, we know you're here all year long.
If you know I'm here all year long, why do you keep treating me like I'm not?
Do you still have that plastic, Jesus?
God wants us to know him. He wants us to know him in truth. if you have some ideas about God that don't match up with what He has told us through the Scriptures, we have a problem. You've made up your own Wilson. You know, you will hear this all the time. People say, well, I don't believe God will do blah, 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 blah. Well, you know what? God doesn't care what you think about Him. God wants you to know Him. My ideas about God have to learn to line up with the Scriptures. Because that's who He is, my friends. He's not a homemade God. He's a real person, and He wants you to know Him in truth. Verse 7, they sow the wind, they reap the whirlwind. We'll talk about that in a minute. The stalk has no bud, it shall never produce a meal. If it should produce, aliens would swallow it up. There's the aliens again. Israel is swallowed up. Now they are among the Gentiles like a vessel in which is no pleasure. That's talking about now they're just like a cracked pot. Nobody wants them for nothing. Verse 9, and they have gone up to Assyria like a wild donkey alone by itself. Ephraim has hired its lovers like a wild donkey. Donkeys are famous for their independent streak. Israel wants to do its thing on its terms and not God's terms. Israel doesn't want to do what God wants it to do. Verse 10, yes, though they have hired among the nations, now I will gather them, and they shall sorrow a little, but because of the burden of the king of princes. The king of the princes is talking about the Assyrians, that they would add their burdens to them. They think the Assyrians are going to help them, but the Assyrians are just going to double, triple their taxes. That's a burden. Verse 11. Because Ephraim has made many altars for sin, they have become for him altars of sinning. I have written for him the great things of my law, but they were considered a strange thing. They don't want to pay attention to God's word. For the sacrifices of my offerings, they sacrifice flesh and eat it, but the Lord does not accept them. Now he will remember their iniquity and punish their sins. They shall return to Egypt. For Israel has forgotten his maker and has built temples. Judah also has multiplied fortified cities, but I will send fire upon his cities, and it shall devour his palaces. Now, it says, Israel has forgotten his maker, but built temples. This is what religion is all about, folks. Man's religion. We're good at constructing buildings, religious buildings, without even knowing the God we claim to serve. Back at verse 7, I want just to end up with this thought. They sow the wind, and they reap the whirlwind. I'm calling this principle investment strategies, but to be honest here, Hosea is using farming language, sowing and reaping, planting and harvesting. Seeds are what you sow now in order to harvest a crop later. And their seeds were made of wind. Not real seeds, just wind. And if you plant wind, I mean, good luck at harvest time. You know, your Thanksgiving meal is going to be a little bit sparse there, you know, if you're just planting wind. The things that they were sowing were their idolatry, their treaties with other nations, and their wicked deeds. And what they're going to reap is a whirlwind, a tornado, destruction. You plant the wind, you're going to sow. You're going to sow the wind, you're going to reap the whirlwind. A fellow named George Munsing wrote, talking about sowing and reaping, he says, if you cheat in practice, you'll cheat in the game. If you cheat in your head, you'll cheat on the test. If you cheat on the girl, you'll cheat on your mate. Sow a thought, reap an act. Sow an act, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny. Pay attention to what you're planting in your life. We could think of this in terms of investments, investment strategies. What are you investing in? Where do you spend your time, your money, all that you have? Are you investing in things that will produce a real profit for you?
In his
Okay, let's start that over again.
So this is my friend Frank in his Retirement plan?
One golden crown?
Come on, Frank. How long have we known each other? Go to E-Trade. They got killer tools, man. They'll help you nail a retirement plan that's fierce.
2 golden crowns.
You realize the odds of winning are the same as being mauled by a polar bear and a regular bear in the same day?
Frank!
Oh, wow. You didn't win? I want to show you something. It's my shocked face.
Get a retirement plan that works at E-Trade.
Now, I'm not trying to push E-Trade, and I'm not talking about your retirement in strategies. But if you're, see, it's kind of stupid to think of that you're planning your retirement that you're going to win the lottery. That's what they're laughing at. If you're planning on living after you retire based on your lottery winnings, really good luck with that. We're talking about eternal plans. And if you're basing your eternity, you know what? I got news for you. You are going to spend a whole lot more time in eternity than you will in retirement. Did you know that? Let's say you retire at age, let's say you're one of these early birds. You retire at, 55? I got some friends who just like, let's say you retired at 65. Let's say you lived to 90. That's what, 25 years? Something like that? 25 years? What's 25 years compared to eternity? Not much, is it? And don't get me wrong. It's good to plan for retirement. Good. It's good. Excellent plan for retirement. But learn to think a little past retirement. You sow the wind, you're going to reap the whirlwind. How are you investing your time? What if I peeked into your day timer? Not the one you write out for your wife, but the one where what you actually spend your time on. What if I had somebody do an audit on your finances to find out what you actually spend your money on? Jesus said, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven." That's where you're going to spend eternity. Where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Friend, if you are investing your life, just a portion of your life, start with a portion of your life, and investing in the things of God, and no, I'm not going to take an offering. That's not what this is about. Don't you dare think that. We've thought about Operation Christmas Child. What an awesome thing. You invest in the things of God. On the other hand, if you sow the wind, you're going to reap the whirlwind. Let's stand and pray.